Now then, viewers, and welcome back to the Andy Mechanic YouTube channel. Now, we've been doing a few videos on winch repairs, or at least stripping down and doing an assessment of what failed. In the last video, we stripped down the winch motor and inspected that from a winch that a viewer sent in. Now, my apologies, I made a mistake when we looked on the parts diagram. This is not, it turns out, to be a Vantage 3000 winch. It's actually a WARN ProVantage 4500S, and the S stands for the short drum, you know, a very narrow drum rather than the full width drum that you find on four-wheel drives. And they come with a number of different options, so it took me a while to work out which one this is, because there's not really any identifying features on it. So the motor, as we worked out before, needs replacement. The armature, which is completely burnt out, and you can see that in the previous video, and all the other problems associated with that. Unfortunately, WARN don't supply internal parts for the motor. You've got to buy a complete motor. Such is life. It comes with the bearing and that end casting plate as one big lump. Obviously, they don't trust people nowadays to rebuild motors themselves or replace the brushes. Bit of a shame. When your brushes wear out, you've got to go and buy a whole new motor. What a shame. Anyway, in this video, we're going to strip down the Planetary gear set. That's the gearbox at the other end of the winch. It does work. You can turn the input shaft, and you can just see the output, which is these little gears here. That's what keys into the drum. You can just see them turning. So it does seem to be working okay. It's not stiff. There's no no points of high resistance during its rotation. So I don't really see a problem, you know, with this internally, but I do want to strip it down and give it a good clean up, inspect everything, and re-grease it and reassemble it. And that's what we're doing in this video. Right, time for the intro. Used.
You don't paint something without warping.
Honestly. Okay, so first off, let's take a look on the WARN Industries website at the correct diagram showing all the parts and the parts kits that you can get for this winch. And that'll give us an idea, basically, on the layout inside this gearbox before we start to pull it apart. Here we go. Okay, so we're on the WARN Industries, so it's international.warn.com/replacement-parts-4-power sports, because this is a winch off an ROV. Now, if we scroll down, it's got on the left-hand side the model of the winch. So we're going to keep scrolling down, and we know it's a ProVantage now. So a ProVantage replacement parts, and it's a 4500S. Which is this one here. Look, this is what I believe it really is. So we'll download that and we'll open that up. There we go. Okay, so its part number is 90451 or 91046. Seems to have two different part numbers. The rated line pull is 4,500 pounds, which is just over 2,000 kilograms. It's a 12-volt DC motor, which is 1.9 horsepower, or, if you're in modern stuff, 1.4 kilowatts, and it's got permanent magnets, and we saw those in the previous video. Its gear train, so the transmission part of it, is a 3-stage Planetary gear set, and the gear ratio is 154:1. So the motor has to rotate 154 times for the drum to rotate once. Clutch free-spool is a sliding pin and ring gear. The brake is a roller disc. What else we need to know? Nothing else really. There we go. Okay. Oh yes, duty cycle intermittent, which means it's not designed for permanent continuous use. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't realize that, and they just keep using them until they break and they overheat. Okay, so this is the parts diagram. Let me just rotate that page around so we can see it properly. once more. There we go. Okay. Zooming in. Now, you can see down here, just to recap, the motor is only available as one part. There's no internals shown to the motor whatsoever. And if we go to the other end, this is the transmission. This is the gearbox, the Planetary gear sets. And it's actually got 1, 2, 3 Planetary gear sets in there, which is pretty cool. And they're all available as individual parts by the looks of it. So we've got, let's just pick some numbers, 16, 14, and 13. So 13, 14, and 16. I wonder if they're available separately. Let's have a look. Yes, they are. 13, 14, 15, 16, all separate part numbers. That's good news. Well done, WARN. That means if we do find any damage on any particular Planetary gear set, we can order just that gear set and not have to order a complete internal kit. Great stuff. Right, okay, let's get to it. Right, just looking at the winch, we've got down here 2 retaining bolts. So we'll whiz those out first, and I think that's then going to allow us to remove this big steel plate. Fingers crossed. Okay, here we go. Dum 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 dum. I love taking stuff apart. Great fun. There we go. Coolio. Right, 2 bolts. And that little base plate. That's got the thread there for that little screw that went down through the bottom. Okay, is it going to allow us to remove this plate? I do see what looks like some more screw ends here. So maybe not. Right, one little bush thing out of the way. Okay, is that going to come out? It is! Oh, look at that. Oh, they're just little indents, look. That's all they are. Cool. We are in. Great stuff. That was easy, wasn't it? Okay, so digging our way in slowly. Let me get some pliers because it's very greasy. We've got to lay all of this out in order so that Andy's got some possible chance of putting that together again. So the first Planetary gear set is coming out. And that is the gear that keys into the drum. So that obviously is an indication it's the it's the last man standing in the lineup. Got a little bit of signs of corrosion going on there. Look, there's obviously some moisture's got in at some point. But how do the gears look? Let's have a look. Just whiz them round. Take a look. Yes, definitely been some standing water in there, hasn't there? Okay, that one's all right. No teeth missing. That one's good. Yep, that's all right. And so is that one. Excellent. Good job. Right, we'll stick that down on the bench. Where's me rag? Okay. Oh, it's considerably lighter now. And now for the next one, we'll just pull that out. There we go. Okay. Same again, Sam. Right, teeth good. Yes, that one's all right. This one's only got 3 gears. There we go. 3 little Planetary gears. And the gear in the middle, by the way, is called the sun. Well, that one looks pretty good. The grease isn't great. I mean, it's not great on my fingers, but it's quite congealed, isn't it? Right, we'll pop that one down, make a mess of the bench. Now, what else have we got? We've got this ring gear here, look, that needs to come out. So we'll just give me a little yuck. There we go. So, is that intact? Any broken teeth? I mean, there shouldn't be. The winch isn't very old. Again, we've got indication of some standing water. There's some corrosion been happening inside this winch. But all of the gears, let's come around a bit so I can see what you're seeing. All of the teeth, they look pretty good actually, don't they? Cool. Now, that went in. Is it orientated? I don't think it is, but it went in. This was the outside, so I'll stick it that way up on the bench. And lastly, we've got one more just down the bottom. Can we get him out? We can. Oh, look at that. That was easy, wasn't it? Made to be fixed by the looks of it. So we can remove that shaft. And again, this middle gear here, the sun gear, is looking fine. It's called a sun gear because everything else goes around it. That's the idea. And we've got the planetary gears again. All looking pretty good, I think. That one's all right. Yeah, no missing teeth on that one. Oh, that one's a bit stiff. Oh, there we are. That's it. So how is that looking? Perfect. That's good. And I've forgotten which way around. Oh, that's right. That was the up. Okay, so we'll stick that down there on the bench. Now, what else have we got in the hole? Well, we need to also inspect all of these teeth here as well, the outers. Can you see? You can see. That's excellent. So, just doing that rear ring gear first. Yep, they all look pretty good. And now for this one. Looking pretty good. Obviously, I'm going to clean the whole thing up, get rid of all the old grease and re-grease it so I can give it a really good inspection once it's clean. But you can see down there, look, there's been quite a lot of water getting into this winch. It's obviously been submerged at some point. Not good. Now, we can also see this is the free-spool. So, as WARN says, if we turn it that way, then it should be engage drive, which it already was. Oh, hang on, we've got a seal falling out. Let's just put that somewhere. Okay. So if we want a free spool, we've got to turn it clockwise, the way you're looking at it. And if we want to engage the winch, we turn it anti-clockwise, as you're looking at it. There we go, look, that's it. So that's free spool, and that's winch engage. So what actually happens on the inside? It doesn't look like anything happens at all. Okay, well, let's take this end apart and have a look and see how that works. Now, judging by the diagram, it's these little inserts, these bits we've got to push in to remove the red bit. So we can do that. And then what else have we got inside? Oh, there's a little tiny circlip. Let me get some circlip pliers. These ones should do the trick, I would say. Hopefully they're small enough. Are you going to fit in there? They might not be small enough. Jeez, they are. It's a tiny little hole in there. No, they don't fit. Holy moly. Can we get in there with a pick? Well, we can. Don't want to lose the circlip. There we go. Good catch, little pick. Well done. Right, on the bench. Okay, so we can now remove that. And the mechanism inside. It's a bit dry. But yes, something is happening. It's happening. It's pushing these pins when it goes on that ramp, which is now, it's now stuck on the ramp. There we go, look. Okay, so those little pins move in and out. We'll probably pull those all the way through, actually. Okay, let's leave that intact for now. So what do those pins do inside? Ah, okay. So those pins act on this. There you go, look, so they must lock in to one of these slots either side. Excellent stuff. We'll stick them back in, I think, and then we can see how they operate from the other side. Right, so just sticking that back on again. What keys that in? What makes that sit in this particular position? Because it is... Ah, okay, hang on then. So, I think that sits in there like that. It does. There we are, look. Okay, good to know. So I think the easiest thing to do is to put that in there, put the pins in there like that. And then offer the whole thing in. It's always good to have a little play around before you take the whole thing completely apart, just so you've got an idea how it goes back together. He says with complete confidence. There we go. Okay, so that shouldn't ride up like that. It didn't ride up last time because it had the circlip in place. More work required. We get the general idea, don't we? So we can work that out when we put that together again. But that definitely sits in there like that, that's for sure. There's no other way that that's going to work. Pretty flimsy though, isn't it? Okay, so those pins, if I just manually activate one, you can see the pin just right down there in the bottom. So in one position, which I would say will be free spool, that pin will be retracted like that. And then when you want to engage the gear, the pin is pushed in, and obviously both pins are pushed in together. Cool. Good job. Well done, WARN. Now there's still a couple more components to identify in this Planetary gear set. And one of them is, there's a little tiny little one-way bearing. It's like a sprag clutch on the end there. Look, you see, if I just do that, you can see it rotates one direction. In fact, I'll put it in the casing. I'll do you a close-up. And then we've got to find that brake thing as well that's in there. So I'll put in the actual activation of the free spool to one side for a minute, because I'm still getting my head around that flimsiness of what's really going on. Let's just double check this one-way bearing is working properly, because I'm not over happy with it, to be honest. Oh, that little gear comes off separate. That's pretty cool. Okay, just getting rid of some of this grease. There's some serious signs of heat burn there, look. There's a lot of heat marks. It's blued the metal. I wonder if that's a manufacturing thing, where they've tempered it up, or whether it's actually from use. Another clue. And that gear keys into the shaft, look. Right, so I'm going to clean everything up properly with some brake cleaner and stuff, but it's even got a little dot mark on there, look. I wonder if there's a dot mark on the shaft. I don't see one. It seems to go in one of 6 different positions. That's weird. Okay. Just getting rid of some of this. God, the grease is just horrific. Very, very sticky. Okay, now that goes on there that way round. And then it sits. You can see there's some little indents, some ridges on the outside here, look. And they key into the actual, that casing down there. So we can check that. It should rotate, as you're looking at the camera, it should rotate clockwise, but not anti-clockwise. And there's a definitive stop. If I get some pliers, can I actually turn that? I can't. I can. Right, that's the brake. Okay, so you can hear that. So as I turn that, we've now got, there must be some clutch plates inside that end component. Probably isn't disassemblable, but definitely seems to work. There we go, look. So you should feel some resistance on that clutch, on that brake pack at the end. Okay, cool. We're getting somewhere. Right, stick that there. Now let's remove that brake pack from the end and see if there's any more telltale signs. It'll also help with cleaning as well. Now, I think one thing we should do before we take it completely off is we should mark its position on the casing, because obviously all these holes appear to be equidistant. So we need to put a line on the casing and a line on here so we know which way to orientate it when we refit it. So that's very easily done, doesn't cost anything, saves us a lot of time later on. We'll put a little line on the casing and then we'll take it up there and we'll put it onto there. Look, that works, doesn't it? In fact, just in case it gets rubbed off, I'll stick it there. Okay, now lifting that out. Oh, it does actually come apart. I was expecting it to be a sealed unit. Okay, well, that's not so good, is it? Because it's full of rust. Look at the inside of there. So it's definitely not sealed against the elements. And just very carefully, sort of take things off one at a time so we keep them all in order. Now we've got a little radial bearing to cope with the thrust. That's interesting stuff. Right, where's my little pick gone? There he is. Right, one radial bearing appears to be intact, and another plate, and that's about it. Okay, so we'll just move him across a little bit. Move all those across because I'm trying to keep everything in order. And that, will that come out of there? It might do. It should do. Where's my screwdriver? Let's just mark that against the casing. And let's remove the seal before we damage that. There we go. I'll stick him over there. And there's two more actually here, look. Put those in there. Don't lose those. Right, can we knock that plate out? We can. Bloody good. But yeah, quite a bit of corrosion for quite a new winch. That's bizarre. Right, so that is everything. I'm just going to beef up that mark because there's not a lot of mark going on there. There we go, look. So all that needs to be cleaned up before we can reassemble. Wow, I wasn't expecting to see so much rust, but we've verified that the one-way bearing works, and we've verified that at least the brake was working as well. And you can see there, look, this is I suppose you'd call this the friction plate. It's got oh, that's just grease, but you can see that that's what keys into there, and then it only works in one direction. Wow, there's not much to it, is there? It looks to me like I've got a ton of cleaning up to do now, so let me crack on with that. Here's a word from Tool Girl Holly, and I'll see you very shortly when we can put the whole thing back together and get our head round how that flimsy kind of free-spool mechanism works at the end of the transmission. See you shortly.
Hey guys, it's Tool Girl Holly here. Now's the time to grab your anti-mechanic mug. You can find that on the Zazzle website, just up the top here. Once you do, you can take a selfie with it and send it to antimechanic@live.co.uk. That'll throw you in the draw to win some really cool stuff, including Forge Gear, Ting Tools, and the Anti-Mechanic personalised jacket. Draw will be drawn on December 2020. Signing off, Tool Girl Holly.
Everything's cleaned up. Now there is a little bit of surface damage because of that corrosion, that rusting that was occurring, but I think we'll be okay. Now I'm going to do the rebuild as a dry rebuild with no grease whatsoever, purely for the benefit of the camera, for you the viewers, so you can see how the whole thing goes together. Once I start packing loads of grease in there, it becomes a lot harder to see what's really going on. Right, well, let's get to it. Well, I suppose first job, we'll put it back together the way it came apart. We'll just fit that brake system at the back of the transmission. Now that goes in that way around. It can go in one of 6 different positions. I don't think it makes any difference. I did mark it. The marker's now gone, and you can see the corrosion around here. Look, it's pretty bad, isn't it? I think it'll still be okay for now. It's good enough for demonstration purposes anyway. Now that sits on there like that, so that's what that little one-way clutch keys into. Next job is the radial bearing. You can just see the slight indents on the surface there, look. Right, we'll pop him in there. It doesn't matter which way around that goes. I've got to try and do it as centrally as possible, I think. Now, that one, again, we can just see the bearing marks on the back there. Looks like that goes that way around. You can see I've tried to clean the rust off best I can. Okay, and then we've got the spring washer, which sits on top. And I think the ends of the spring washer are better to be against the plastic casing. It goes on the end. Right. The plastic casing. So we've got, if I just rotate it round for you, we've got a little mark down the side. That actually got rubbed off when I was cleaning it all up, so I've put it back on where I think it needs to be. There are also some little tiny dowels on the underside of this plate. Here, look, there's 4 of them, which means that you can't really fit it incorrectly. They go either side of these lugs by the looks of it. And of course, you've got the holes where the freewheel pins go through. Now, obviously, they have to line up with the holes in this plate here, look. So, only one of 2 positions it can go, and it looks symmetrical. Anyway, so we'll just put that down there. Right, here we go. So very carefully, going to drop that on. Now, obviously, we've got a spring in there that we have to compress. So we'll get some screws popped in. That's one. We'll do the opposite one, then we can let go. Where's my little driver? There we are, look. Get them started. Right, so that's 2 in. Let's get the other 4. Now, I doubt that the torque setting is particularly high on these, so I'm not going to go mad, because they are only self-tappers. You don't want to damage the threads in the aluminium. Right. That one there, look. There we go. So, Mr. Clutch should now be, or the brake should say, should now be assembled. And what we can do now is just with that shaft, I just want to locate that correctly so that sits that way around on the shaft. We're going to pop it in there and give it a bit of a jiggle until it moves into place. And then you can see that only rotates. You can see there, look. See, it's pushing it that way, and I can turn it that way, and it pushes it that way. So we know that one-way bearing, it is working. Get my pliers again. We can just check that brake's still working. So easy that way, and you hear that? There we are. That seems to be working just fine without any grease. Right, so we'll remove that again for now. No, we'll leave that in actually. That stays in, doesn't it? Okay, and then we drop down all the gears from there on. Now I also, before we do that, I'll just put that out for a second. Just want to show you how the freewheeling system works. With a planetary gear set, this being the ring gear, this ring gear can have 2 states. One, it can be fixed, and the other, it can be allowed to rotate. And you see it's got these little indents around the outside, and it appears to be identical both sides. So I don't think it matters which way around it goes in. Those little pins, these ones here, look, that's one side for now. These little pins, they come in from behind and they lock into one of these lugs, and when it does that, it prevents this ring gear from rotating, and that's when the winch is being driven by the motor. If this pin is retracted, as is the equivalent opposite pin, they're both retracted by that little knob on the end, then this ring gear is then allowed to turn, and that gives you your free spool. So of course this needs to be able to turn freely, and of course the grease will provide that. So that's how the internals work on the free spool system. This has to be able to return, be retracted, as is the other pin, and then this can rotate to provide the free spool, allow you to pull the cable out of the drum with ease. There's always going to be a little bit of drag, but it shouldn't be too bad. And you can see it's exactly the same on this side, but they're just slightly offset, probably for strength, don't know. But I think this can go in either way around, because I've completely forgotten which way around it came out. But it looks identical. So, let's crack on. So, we'll get, there you go, look, all lined up. You can see that pretty well, can't you? So that then drops back in there again. And that's got our first sun gear down the bottom. Now these only really fit in one way, so you can see that that sun gear keys in to those planet gears. So that drops down there and will align, give it a bit of a jiggle, and it'll drop into mesh. There we go, look. So now we can see when this is the motor input, by the way, don't forget. As we turn that, you can now see that first planetary gear set is now turning. Pretty cool. Right, so now what we're going to do is drop in that outer ring gear. That just drops in down there like that. And then we get our second planetary gear system. And you can see they're getting a bit more beefy as we go along. That's because the torque output is increasing and the speed is decreasing as it gets geared down. So that drops into there. So now you can see that's turning even slower. But it's not slow enough. We need one more set. So now we can drop in the big beefy set. And this is the set that keys into the drum. So that drops in there like that. And now we've got our, what is it, 154 to 1, I think it was, ratio. Pretty good. Very happy with that. Good job. I hate redoing videos, but I've forgotten to do something. So we need to go back in again. Oh, here we go. Right, just being very careful. Spot what I've missed. I know you're all shouting at the screen. Andy, you've forgotten the seal. I'd have worked it out when I was going to grease everything up. But there's also these two little seals here, look. Go in there that seal those little push rod things. So we'll pop those in there as well. Now we can finally close it up. Well, finally close it up for the video at least. We're going to be able to line everything up. Yes, there we go, that'll do. And you don't want to, when you're closing this up, make sure it all goes together correctly. Don't force it down, otherwise you could break the little plastic. You should be able to push it down with your fingers before you bolt it up, or in this case screw it up. That'll do. Okay, so let's do a little recap on reinstalling the stuff, the actual gear set. So you can see here, look, things are a little bit out of alignment now. I've been messing around with it, so I'm going to put that in there and give it a jiggle. And that should, in theory, line everything up. I might have to go in there with a screwdriver actually and do that. Where's my screwdriver? There he is, that should work. You can see we've got a little plate just off to one side. There we go, that was easy. Try again. There we are. Right, we're in. Good job. Okay, so quick recap. Smallest planetary gear set goes in first. Don't forget to give it a little jiggle, and then it should line up. There we are. And now for the ring gear, that should drop in. Doesn't matter which way around it goes by the looks of it. And now the intermediate gear set drops in. And finally, the beefy one, the one that engages to the drum. And again, just got to... There we go. We're in. Right. Next job, and we're nearly there. The next job is to fit that end plate. But before we do that, we have another seal. Don't forget the seal, Andy. And that seal drops in there, look. And again, I put grease on that when I do the final assembly. That pops on there. And then we have this little plate that's got the threads for the two bolts. Let me see if I can get those bolts in there. Not actually that easy from this particular angle, but we'll give it a go. There we are. Right, I need something to tighten those up with, don't I? Right, bear with me. Okay, right, pop that in there. Holding everything together. And we need an Allen key. Try and do it on camera for you. There we are, look. Right, just give that a bit of a twizzle. Not too tight for now because we've got to align the other one. Pop that through there. And then, can you actually see what's going on? You can. How's that for camera work? Give that one a twizzle. Not going to go gorilla on these, they're only M6. There we are. Right, so let's just double check we've still got some kind of output from our transmission. We have. Now obviously it sounds very dry because there's no grease in there. But that's actually pretty smooth since there's no lubrication whatsoever. Great stuff. Okay, so what's left to do? Well, we can actually pull that shaft out and everything will stay in place. So we're going to remove that just for now. We've got, don't forget when you're assembling, you've got this little bush to insert. Again, stick a bit of grease on that. I'm going to leave that out for now because it's only going to fall out anyway when I turn this over. What we need to do now is focus on rebuilding or reassembling that, basically the mechanism that controls the freewheel. Here we go. Oakley dokley. So we now need to just put this top cover on with the pins and bits and pieces. So I've noticed in the cover here, this sits in a there is a bit of slop, but it's a very particular position where it sits. So if you align that first, drop it in, and then put on the little pegs. And what I'll do is I'll just give the O-rings a bit of a spray with some silicone spray because I've built the whole thing up dry. There we go. And now I want to hold that in position. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy at all. Flick it round. Put my little finger in. I can stick that one back in again. Hang on, bear with me. Right, he is back in. You didn't see that because it's upside down. And I want to put these in with those basically in that position there, so that they're aligned, so that this bulge here aligns with the side of the winch, this bulge on the side of the winch. So I'm going to do that with both of them. That one's about right actually. I'll leave that alone. And then I can offer the whole thing down. There has to be an easier way. There we go, look. Right. So that is on. Fingers crossed it's going to work. Oh, it feels good. Actually, it feels really good. Let's try and get our circlip back on now. Sorry, it's not particularly accurate, is this bit, but I can't see another way of doing it, to be honest. If you've got a better way of doing it, let me know in the comments. There we go. Circlip is in. There we go. That's pretty positive, isn't it? Cool. Right, and we'll stick Mr. WARN handle back in as well. There we go. And that's it. Well done. Super. Very happy with that. So the question is, does the free spool work? I don't know. Let's have a look. I haven't pre-tested this. I just don't know if it's going to work or not, but it should do. So at the moment, we are in the winch engage position, so we should see drive through the gearbox, which we do. There we go, look. So we've definitely got, this is the power, the drive coming in from the motor through those planetary gear sets and then back out onto this gear, which will drive the drum. And it worked before and it's working now, which is great. So let's pop it now into Free-spool, which is arrows that way. That now should be Free-spool. It should have pulled those two pins back towards the camera, disengaged them from that that ring gear inside. Now if I get, I'll stick our little bush on just to line things up. There we go. and we get said drum, pop that on there, engage, and we should be able to turn the drum quite freely, and you can see that the shaft is not turning. So the drum does free spool, which is great. And now we'll re-engage it. So now we've got drive to the motor, and it's completely locked. I cannot turn it. Let's try it again. Free spool is, oh, hang on, too many hands. That's free spool. Is it going to free spool? It is. There you go, look. So it works. Great stuff. Very, very happy with that. So there's nothing wrong with this whatsoever. It all works fine. It just needs to be stripped and greased up now. So there you go. How to strip down, inspect, and rebuild with some confidence a Planetary gear set on the, what was it, WARN ProVantage 4500-S. The S stands for the short drum used on ATVs and ROVs. This video will apply to many of the smaller WARN winches. They do all, by the looks of it, use Planetary gear sets to get the gear reduction to create the pull rating. Some have 2, some have 3 Planetary gear sets, like we saw in this particular winch. The products that we used in this video, well, we used the old Forge brake cleaner. Good job, thank you, Jared. We also used some black magic, really good. You got stuck threads, and some silicone spray. Super job. I do like the Forge stuff. It works really, really well. And the most recent addition to the workshop is the blue roll. Yes, even Forge, you've come to the table. Again, thanks, Jared, and supplied me some blue roll because I've run out of rags. In fact, in actual fact, this, I'll make it famous, this is the last rag in the workshop. And the only reason why I've got this is I found it in my GoPro bag for some strange reason. Anyway, so there you go. It's now done. I'm just going to strip it down, grease it up off camera, and then it'll sit on the shelf until the new parts or the new motor arrives for the other end, and then I can rebuild the winch, you know, reassemble it completely, knowing that it's going to be essentially refurbished. Brand new motor, rebuilt gearbox, and everything is just fine. Sure, there was a little bit of corrosion on that brake system at the back of the transmission, but I don't think it's really going to affect its operation. If it does, it's something that I can replace quite easily, and the parts shouldn't be that expensive. Well, hopefully you found this video helpful, entertaining, interesting, and of course, informative. If you did, why not subscribe to the channel? Click on subscribe, ring the bell, and our friends at YouTube will send you a notification as and when I upload any new videos. You'll also find me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Feel free to communicate through any of those portals. And if you want to email me directly, you can do that because my email address is down in the description. If you'd like to support the channel, and your support is much appreciated, you can do that in many ways. The easiest way, and it doesn't cost you anything, is to share one of these videos on your social media platforms. You know, spread the word and invite some of your friends to take a look at the channel. There might be something that they find also useful and helpful. You can also support financially. You can do that through Patreon and become a patron to the channel, or you can actually send some real hard cash through PayPal. Remember, these videos do cost time and money to produce, and I do make an awful lot of them. Anyway, your support is much appreciated, and I'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching. Cheers. Over and out. And you get the flip again.